It would be pretty boring if the band you were listening to had everyone playing the exact same notes at the exact same volume. We need change to make a song interesting. We need dynamics. And that's the concept that I want to explore in this video, is dynamics. Now, dynamics is one of the most powerful tools for any composer. And for beginners, it is unfortunately something that we often forget to think about. Now, we're going to explore dynamics through 3 different levels. We're going to peel back the layers and slowly get more and more complex until we have a full understanding of exactly what it means to expand a song or to pull it in. Let's start with the basic dictionary definition of the term. According to Wikipedia, in music, the dynamics of a piece is the variation in loudness between the notes or phrases. It's literally as simple as that. It's how loudly or how softly you're playing. And let's have a quick look at the symbols we use to indicate dynamics. We'll start with P and F. P stands for piano, which means softly. F stands for forte, which means loudly. Now, if you wanted to play softer than P, you'd write it as double P or pianissimo. Even softer than that would be triple P or pianissimo. If you wanted to play louder than forte, you'd write a double F, which is fortissimo, and even louder than that would be triple F or fortissimo. You also get an MP and an MF. The M in both cases stands for mezzo, which translates to moderately, so moderately soft or moderately loud. Now at this point one might ask, why do we use symbols in the first place and not numbers? I mean, for example, we have a measuring system for the volume that a sound is, known as decibels. Well, this might just be because the decibel system was only invented in 1928 and we've been writing down music for over 2,000 years. I mean, depending on how you define written music scores to begin with. But more to the point, the meanings that our dynamic symbols represent are variables, because they kind of have to be. I mean, consider the fact that a trumpet can play so much louder than a flute. Therefore, triple F on a trumpet, or fortissimo, is going to have a very different meaning to fortissimo on a flute. Also, think about an orchestra or a band of players on the same stage. If the entire orchestra is playing and there's a triple P, it comes up on the flute score. Well, playing that at the volume you'd play it as a soloist, if there was no one else on stage, would be far too quiet. You'd be drowned out by the rest of the orchestra. So how do we know then how loudly or how softly to actually play? Well, the way I was taught when I was doing classical piano training was that triple P is as softly as you can possibly play while still being audible. And triple F is as loudly as you can possibly play while still being musical. And of course, without breaking your instruments. MP, mezzo piano, at least the way that I personally was taught, was right in the middle. So if the music says P, well, you know how loud mezzo piano is, you simply make it slightly quieter than that. And pianissimo being slightly quieter even than that. So that's how I was taught to read dynamics in a piece of music. You know what a triple P is, you know what a triple F is, you know what an MP is, you work the rest out. Alright, let's look at crescendos and decrescendos. Now I have done a short on this which can be found on my channel, but in short, a crescendo tells us to gradually increase the loudness as we play for the notes highlighted by the actual symbol, and a decrescendo does the opposite. Now, oftentimes composers would include dynamic symbols with their crescendos as well to make it more clear how loud you're meant to get at the end of said crescendo. Like for instance a forte, or in the case of a decrescendo you might have a pianissimo. There are other dynamic symbols like accents and things like that, but I do want to move on to the next level of understanding dynamics, because there is so much more to dynamics than just how loudly or how softly you play. This is level 2. Volume is defined as the loudness of a sound. That's how we've been talking about it in the first level, but it can also refer to the amount of something, like the volume of water. Now I have a piece that I've arranged called Blessed Assurance, as you can see on the screen. Now just as an example for us to look at, you see the second way that you can increase dynamics is to layer more voices or channels or instruments or whatever you want to call it. Basically, we're going to be playing more notes at the same time. Let's have a look at this example and see what that sounds like. This is just the flute section by itself. We'll just do it as a solo for now. Turn that up a bit for you, it's very soft. Okay, now it's very quiet. Let's add a violin. Now this violin, for those of you who can't read music, is playing the same thing as our flute. Okay, so let's just, I don't know if I can. Okay, so it looks like it's going to be flutes along with bassoons. Actually, no, we can make this work. Let's just, we will undo that in a second. Flutes and violins, and again, these are all playing the exact same notes. Okay. I don't know if you can hear the flutes, it's pretty quiet. Okay. Let's add in another instrument. But this time it's just going to be chords. And yeah, I think let's look at this properly. Let's actually explain what I'm doing here. For those of you who are musical, that's who I'm doing this for. If you're not, don't worry. Just listen to what it sounds like. You'll get what I'm saying there. My double basses are playing the roots of the chord. Cellos are also playing the roots, but an octave higher. My violas looks like they're playing the fifth of the chord, and second violins are playing the third. So this is just a triad. It's literally just chords. There's nothing fancy, and this is what it sounds like by simply adding in And the thing I'd like you to notice is there are no dynamic cymbals here. We have not changed the volume, or rather the loudness that we are playing. This flute has not changed how loud they are playing. All we did was we added in some strings. Bassoon is, well, bassoon's a bit more complicated. We'll talk about that in the next stage. But that's an example of adding in more instruments to increase the dynamics of a piece. Now you might ask, well, does this work in the case of, for instance, if you're playing as a soloist? And the answer is yes in some cases. I mean, for instance, if you're playing a guitar, the principle still works. You can go from picking single notes to strumming chords. It's the same concept. We're not playing any louder or harder, but we're still increasing the size of the sound. The same thing happens with piano. You might be playing single notes on the piano, but you can add in chords with the left hand. So any instruments with which you can play more than one note at a time. But that having been said, there is one more level, and this is my favorite one to make use of. It takes the most knowledge, the most practice, the most skill, but man, you can make some beautiful stuff with this. Level 3 is the only level that requires a certain amount of music theory knowledge to use, and basically it involves adding counter melodies and harmonies and things like that. Now, if you don't know what a counter melody is, don't worry, you're about to hear an example in my arrangements. Just know that counter melodies are another way of increasing the size of the sound without necessarily having to play louder or harder. And our bassoon, you know what? I just realized our bassoon's playing the same thing as our double bass. No, our counter melody comes in with our brass section, if I'm not mistaken. Brass section and oboe and clarinet. Looks like our violins keep doing the same thing, although no, second violin also plays counter melody. Okay, quick difference between counter melody and harmony for those of you who are musical theorists. A harmony is technically a kind of counter melody. A counter melody is its own separate melody. So let's play this. Let's go from here. And let's play this. This is just the counter melody being played in oboe. So what you'll notice, it's a different tune to what we first heard. It's a completely different melody, but it dovetails beautifully. That's a counter melody. A harmony would be something that follows the actual melody, but say a third up, right, or a fifth up. That's the difference between a harmony and a counter melody. But let's hear what this sounds like by adding in our different layers. This is the chorus of the piece, and we're going to play, let's do violins, oboes and clarinets together just to have a quick listen, and bassoons. Let's do the whole woodwind section. You can hear the melody clearly in the flutes. Okay. And that is the idea of adding in counter melodies and harmonies to make it louder. And the more instruments you've got, the more room you've got to build. I do want to show you one more concept, just as a side thing that is very useful. If you've been building up for 5 or 6 pages, we've been getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and we need to do that final push. But the problem is, we've run out of steam. And it just doesn't feel like that final push is sounding loud enough. One of the things you can do is pull everything out except maybe trumpets, for instance, or I wouldn't normally do it with woodwind section, but you pull everything but one track out, and then you bring it all back in for those last few bars. It's super useful at adding power, and that's what actually happens when we go from the verse into the chorus. So let's have a listen. Let's have a listen from the start, I think, and listen to how we have weaved this whole thing together. We're going to have woodwind, it's just flutes, bassoons, and string section. Timpani is only in there just for the fun of it, just because I felt like it. Let's have a listen. I'll say it again, bassoon and flutes are basically just playing chords right now, and violins are playing the melody along with the flutes to add some richness. Okay, get ready for everything to drop out, except for the trumpets and horns. And now we're bringing in, our French horns are also playing a different concept, well, I think the same concept as the clarinets looks like to me. Now, conventionally, if I was doing this as a genuine score to be played, I would actually have some crescendos in here, dynamic cymbals, because obviously there's not a single one placed here. But the only reason I did that, the only reason this piece is completely devoid of dynamic cymbals, was to make a point that we are building sound here without having to play any louder. I want to point out one more thing, and that is what's happening at the end, which is another way we can build dynamics with layers. We are weaving 16th notes and quarter notes in such a way that it just works beautifully. So what's happening is our French horn, our second French horn, and our first violins are playing, let's just do this that you can hear. Okay, but that phrase is stretched out into 2 bars for our second violins. So our second violins actually start to build first. So let's just have a listen to that, and you'll see what I mean. Our second violin starts to build, and then our first violins and our French horns catch up. That's another way you can use. Let's listen one more time. that didn't work. So things like that can be very useful. Folks, those are the three methods that I wanted to, or the three stages, 3 levels, sorry, that I wanted to get across. I really hope this video has helped you get a much deeper understanding of how dynamics work. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.